everyone, and welcome to the 36th episode of Dragon Quest Slime Time, a Dragon Quest Dragon's Den podcast. This is Plattym3.
And this is Liamland. Joining us today are two of our Slime Time regulars, a Slime Time veteran and Tecmo Super Bowl champion. Joining us is Pendy.
Hey.
And co-host of the Slime Time Side Quest podcast, we've got YangusTheLegendaryBandit. Welcome, fellas.
Hello.
Glad you brought in some experts.
Yeah, we did bring in some experts. That's true. So just to recap, the last episode we did of Slime Time Prime was our April Fool's episode. Not everyone stayed for that post-credit scene. A handful of people were really impressed that we got Yuji Horii and were amazed how well he spoke English with an upstate New York accent.
Yeah, that was me. And what was amusing about that even my fiance didn't realize at first when she went to listen to it, English being her second language, she was amazed at his English and remarked that he sounded, kind of similar to me. But she was unaware. She was also unaware of April Fool's Day, so that helped as well. It's not really common in South Korea as it is here.
I mean, some of the writing that we had written was geared towards like dropping hints. Like, I mean, come on, he's not able to answer what his favorite Dragon Quest monster is. He's
Pendy is usually Horii confirmed.
Yeah, it was
but all of it was like
wonderfully pretentious.
The whole thing was like, what's the worst possible interview we could do where the person's just, we're asking questions and they're just shutting us down.
No.
Like the nightmare
coming back, unlikely.
The nightmare. No. Oh yeah. We'd love to have you back sometime after a terrible interview.
No.
All right.
I'll talk to my lawyers.
Oh yeah. I hope he doesn't hear that and say that. Just a disclaimer, in this episode we are celebrating Koichi Sugiyama's catalog. We're going to be focusing on the music and how it enhances the Dragon Quest series. We are not going to be focusing on the composer's complicated personal politics and unfortunate life choices. So just to get started, Pendy, what does Dragon Quest music mean or evoke for you?
So for me, inspires like a sense of beauty, awe, sometimes a sense of nostalgia, wonder, excitement. Listening to it by itself can evoke memories of the games, and also it's just quite entertaining for me to listen in general. Dragon Quest music is some of my favorite music to listen to.
Awesome. How about you, Yangus?
Well, for Dragon Quest music, for me, it's nostalgic from thinking about my early days with RPGs, but it's also a very inspiring music for me personally. I don't really post or talk about it a lot, but I like to come up with creative ideas or stories and characters, things like that. Usually from either stuff I play or listen to. And Dragon Quest music has been a big influence on that. Because like I'll listen to it when I'm driving in the car to work or when I'm just hanging out at home doing stuff around the house. And usually when I hear songs, even if it's one I've reheard again, it gives me ideas for like scenes and characters, like what stories you could possibly put them through. So Dragon Quest music, like it ties into the games themselves very well, I think. But from my own personal standpoint, from just listening to them, even a few that I listened to before playing the games they're from. They're very inspiring tracks, I find, and they evoke a lot of emotions. Like one of my best examples for that would be like the song Adventure from Dragon Quest 3, where you get this grand song that builds and builds in the first part. Then when it starts replaying the melody again in the orchestral versions, it'll quiet down to more of the strings and just play a little like from the woodwinds in the background. Kind of gives you then that sense of like, the adventure, you're like, maybe you're standing on top of a hill looking off in the distance and there's so much to see. So I find it really interesting how inspiring the music of this series has been, not only just for like creatively what it can make you think of, but just how well it can tie into the games themselves.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it for me, it solidifies that kind of medieval fantasy theme and just really complements the scenes really well. Where, like you said, Yangus, it evokes sadness when necessary. It makes you feel more depending on the in-game situation. I mean, there's an actual track in the Dragon Quest V soundtrack called "Make You Feel Sad," so and it does that pretty well.
It does.
Yeah, there's some other. I know Dragon Quest VII has another. And any of the requiems too. When the characters, when you get a party wipe, usually that is like really, it really is a requiem. It's a sad sounding orchestral piece. So it's amazing that he's able to do that. Depending on the situation, then you have the more upbeat like casino themes and stuff. But do you guys have? How about Yangus? We'll start with you. Do you have a favorite? Maybe top 3 favorite soundtracks overall.
Let me look at my notes here. Here we go. Okay. So these are going to be in like no particular order, just how I wrote them out. But for my first one, I wrote down Dragon Quest VII's. I do genuinely consider this to be one of the best Dragon Quest soundtracks from Sugiyama. My bias towards Dragon Quest VII aside, this really feels like a soundtrack that Sugiyama took a lot of inspiration from the past work, or from his best tracks from the previous games, and he created more dynamic pieces for Dragon Quest VII, essentially learning, from the past and from, what really worked in certain games. For like, one I found, for example, for like the tower theme for Dragon Quest V, that one has a really dynamic sense to it with how, like, I don't remember what instrument plays it, but there's a track. There's an instrument that plays a melody in the background where it'll go like almost sounds like if you're falling, like looking off the side, and like you feel that dizzy sort of sensation. Yeah. Well, in Dragon Quest VII's tower theme, Screams from the Tower of Monsters, you get that same sort of feeling with how the strings will do a they'll kind of start quiet and they'll build, and they'll get quiet again and they'll build again. Yeah. That reminded me of that sensation of like if you were like, say if you look down into like one of the pits that are like in the middle of a tower where you could fall and you'd be like, feel kind of nervous about that. Or if you were looking off the side just to see how like far up you had gone.
I think that might actually be, because what you're talking about is like a slide. Yeah. That like that. I think that's violins, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I listened to the orchestral version of that, but. Mm-hmm.
But sorry, go ahead.
Memory. No, from memory, I think that's the violins where you can just kind of like where you can slide your finger up the fret or up the violin as you're playing, and it gives you that you slide it up and down, and it gives you that like kind of, except less cat sounding.
But I know my diddle thing sounds like Ned Flanders or something going, hi diddly ho. but
I want to hear that soundtrack.
The Ned Flanders version of Dragon Quest. But so with 7-2, I think that the game having a bit of a longer development time, for the PS1, I think that might have helped Sugiyama like fine tune a lot of the music and refine it to be just right. Because I think 7 was one of those games that it was in development hell for quite a long time. So I know it came out kind of late in the PS1's lifespan too, not just here in America, but in Japan as well, I believe. Yeah. And I
was gonna say Knob, when we had Knob on the podcast, he actually mentioned that by the time it was coming out in the US, that Yuji Horii was like not interested in the graphics all that much and wanted something more, so they added the cutscene, like the infamous cutscene. I know that has nothing to do with the music, but it's pretty funny that like that cutscene is absolutely awful.
Yeah. Well, you speak of that cutscene, because I know exactly what one you're talking about, that lovely dance one. But
the fingers. Oh my God, the fingers.
Here's a fun fact for you guys and for the folks who are listening. If you ever hear the original symphonic soundtrack for Dragon Quest VII's original release, I believe it was by the London Philharmonic Band, they actually do not include 2 of the songs from 7. They don't have the Deja Tribe / Roaming Tribe theme, and they don't have that dance song from when they're trying to do the Resurrection of the Almighty. Those are the only 2 songs that are not included in 7's official symphonic suite. But then years later, when the Tokyo Metropolitan Symphonic Suite came around, they did include those songs on disc 2, and I believe it's the 4th song on disc 2, if I remember right, because it's right after the song To My Loved One that plays when Kiefer has his final moments with the party.
That makes sense, since that second one is based off that late edition video. So,
But yeah, I would have to say for like it's hard. It's a bit of a toss up for me for what I would consider the best one. But 7 is pretty top tier for me. And like I said, bias aside, like I heard this soundtrack before I ever played Dragon Quest 7, and I really enjoyed the music because it reminded me a lot of some of the other Dragon Quest songs, but at the same time, it had this more, I keep saying the word, but it had this real dynamic approach to it. Like, it sounded like it was going to fit for something much bigger, and with how big of a game 7 ends up being, for better or worse for some people, it definitely fits the mood, I think, and it does a really good job invoking a lot of what, the game's trying to bring across as you're going back and forth between time and the islands.
Yeah, I love the sailing theme from that one, too, the big piratey. I know there's 2 sailing themes. The one I'm talking about is, like, with the trumpets at the beginning. It's like, da, 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 da. Like, that is a really fantastic sailing theme. That's probably one of the best ones out there.
Yeah, Pirates of the Sea is definitely one of Sugiyama's better ocean themes for sure, and it's such a great song to listen to as you're like sailing across the world on that giant ship.
Yeah.
Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to
jump
down?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So for number 2, I put down Dragon Quest VI soundtrack. This one is a close second to 7, and if 7 wasn't in here, I probably would say that 6 is his best work. There are a lot of cool variations of the same songs for the overworld themes, like whether you're in the dream world or if you're in the I forget what they call the other one, but the real world. There's a variation that plays when you're underneath the ocean in the real world. And what's really cool is that it's all the same song, but it's played with different instruments, whether it's the symphonic version or in-game versions, and they all have a different speed and different little tweaks and touches to them, so they all really stand out, I think. My favorite version of that song would probably be for the real world, which is oh god, I don't remember what the name of that one is. I remember it because with Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior Monsters being the first game that I played, I remember this song. It's called Through the Fields. That's the song I'm thinking of. I remember that song sticking out in my mind from playing the Game Boy Color, the original Game Boy Color version of Dragon Warrior Monsters, and that was always a song that, even though I never really beat that game, that was one song in particular that stuck out in my mind. So when I found out years later it was from Dragon Quest VI, I was like, oh, cool. It's so cool then to find out what game this is from, and then started to find out that some of the other songs from that game and some of those monsters you fought were all references to the early Dragon Quest games, which was a really, it was something that as I got older and we started playing more of the main games, that I was able to appreciate it a lot more. Anyway, getting off topic there. There's also some other songs that have this certain touch to them, or like a little differences. There's the sad theme from Dragon Quest VI called Melancholy, and if you listen to or if you look up the in-game soundtracks, they actually label them as either like stringed version or woodwind version. I think if you go onto the Dragon's Den itself, they are labeled differently for the different versions of Melancholy. That'll play in different towns and situations. So it's cool that the songs have those sort of touches, but like aside from that, Dragon Quest VI has some really great songs to it, like the Happy Humming theme, which is the casino. You have the battle themes, which I think every battle theme in Dragon Quest VI is really cool, especially the original version of 6's battle theme from the SNES version, which has like that hard rock sort of sound to it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about the Super Famicom version of that soundtrack, but the in-game, the OST is amazing.
It is.
And I don't think it translated well to DS and mobile. I don't know why, because the quality itself is obviously less than on a more advanced system, but it's something about that original soundtrack. I just love playing that game and listening to it.
No, I would definitely have to agree with you on that one. I feel like that's the case with Dragon Quest III's Super Nintendo soundtrack as well. Like that version of the soundtrack, so good. And I think that's something too that's kind of been lost with like people try and replicate the Super Nintendo sound. Like there's so many games from that system that have such a unique take on it. And Dragon Quest VI, a part of the reason why I'm putting it on here is because of that Super Nintendo sound to it, but as well as the symphonic versions as well. Like 6's soundtrack, there's so many great pieces. Like one of the songs I'm going to talk about later in our favorite tracks, like I would consider that to be one of the prettiest songs that Sugiyama has ever written, and it's such, has such a great character to it. Anyway, last one that I'll mention is Dragon Warrior Monsters 2. So Dragon Warrior Monsters 1 did have a few original songs, but part of the soundtrack did reuse some of the overworld themes from previous Dragon Quest games. But with Dragon Warrior Monsters 2, they had a lot more original music and just a few callbacks, like the theme from Great Tree from the first game. This soundtrack was one that cemented why I love the Game Boy / Game Boy Color sound. You have stuff like Great Log's theme, which is this it's such a great song for like just showing you, even though it's on this tiny little Game Boy, just how big this kingdom is overall, and like how special it is to these people on the island. That, like, as you eventually then get to around to saving the kingdom from sinking into the ocean, you do have I think you do get this nice sense of accomplishment from getting that, and it's more of a satisfying theme than once you save the day. You have the Return of the Starry Shrine theme from Dragon Warrior Monsters 1, which is that song is just, it's so short, but it's so cemented in my head because it's just so catchy as you're trying to breed monsters and hatch your eggs and everything. You have the different Key World themes, which did end up making appearances in stuff like Joker 2, for example, as different songs in the different areas of that island in Joker 2. And this is one of my favorite details. The Ice World theme from Dragon Warrior Monsters 2 actually made its debut in a full mainline game in Dragon Quest X, and it was called The Heavens. And it was really cool to see that game, or that song, or one of the songs from a Dragon Warrior Monsters game, get included in a main series game, because normally it's the other way around. So I thought that was really cool that we got this official symphonic version on the Dragon Quest X Tokyo Metropolitan Symphony Orchestra soundtrack. It sounds really good. And it just gave me that same feeling of exploring those ice fields as a kid again, and just made me nostalgic for the Game Boy Color version of that song too.
Oh wow! Yeah, I don't think I realized that. That's pretty rare that a music debuts in a spin-off and then makes it to a mainline series.
Mm-hmm. Huh. But yeah, those. If I had to pick three, those would be top three choices of soundtracks. Closely after that would probably be Dragon Quest V's and then Dragon Quest 8's. But it's hard for me it was hard for me just to pick three to put in this list. So
yeah,
but if I had to pick top three, it would be Dragon Quest 7's, 6's, and Monsters 2, Dragon Warrior Monsters 2's soundtracks.
Awesome, yeah, all great soundtracks. Okay, Pendy, how about you?
So first one for me would probably be the soundtrack to Dragon Quest 4. And in particular, the live soundtrack that I ended up buying myself. Dragon Quest IV is one of my favorite Dragon Quest games in general. And the music is actually a big part of that, too. It has some of my favorite themes, whether it be battle, town, castle, dungeon, tower, etc. I especially like the battle theme, the tower theme, and the endgame track as well. When I complete the game and I get to see that balloon kind of drop off all your party members at their various locations, and you get that nice little reunion at the end with that one character, I get a little teary-eyed. Like it brings up emotion in me. It's such a beautiful ending for an NES game, or really any game for that matter. So Dragon Quest IV, kind of means a lot to me, and I just love the music in that game. It just sticks out to me as my favorite among all the different soundtracks that there's out there. The next one is actually that I like is actually more of a compilation that I bought a long time ago, as opposed to one single soundtrack. It's called the Symphonic Suite Dragon Quest Complete CD Box. It was done by the London Philharmonic Orchestra, and it's an arrangement of all the music from Dragon Quest 1 through 7 that was done at the time.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty unique. It's actually cool. It's a box of 7 CDs, which I still have. And what was fun is that it even came with a little bonus item. You got these little like bottle cap slime characters that came with it as well. And it's all different slimes. It's like king slimes, blue slime, angel slime, all the different slimes in little bottle cap form. So it has a nice little thing that you can display on top of that. But what's interesting about it is it doesn't go like Dragon Quest 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. in order. It actually groups them by theme. So like you'll have a CD that will have like all the battle themes, and then you'll have a CD that will have like all the themes that you get from going on when you get your boat or when you're flying and stuff like that. So it kind of, or town themes, it kind of arranges it that way. So it's very interesting the way that they do that instead of doing it in game order. So that was very unique as well. I saw that they ended up doing kind of the same thing for Dragon Quest 1 through 9, but with the Tokyo Metropolitan Symphony Orchestra, but I did not end up buying that. By the time I knew that was out there, it was already way too high priced. But I got the complete box like when it came out for not too much money, and I've had it ever since, and it's pretty cool. I like to pop it in, and I can listen to all sorts of Dragon Quest music. And something that I might as well mention too is that 7, Yangus, is one of your favorites. I for whatever reason, like it just 7's music did not appeal to me at first. When I first played the game, it just wasn't my favorite. Maybe it was because it was a little more laid back or melancholy because of the themes that 7 goes through, but I just wasn't digging it at first. But I've learned to, it's grown on me over the years, and now I appreciate it a lot more than I used to. Like I actually love it now. But it was interesting how I ended up was kind of like, but then it got better as the years went by, and I listened to it more and more. And then finally, I would say my third would be the symphonic soundtrack for 8. Now, when I go through like particular tracks that are my favorites, 8 may not come. I don't think 8 comes up at all. But like just as an overall soundtrack, I really loved 8 from beginning to end. I thought it was a very well, very well done soundtrack of all the different themes all together. So it's been nice to it was nice to hear that, like the battle theme, the town themes, everything was I thought was really, really great. So that's been one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, I'm going to echo you in saying that the Dragon Quest IV live performance from 2002, that soundtrack is definitely one of my favorites. It's just great to hear the crowd cheering and clapping after almost every track, and it just kind of evokes the feeling of like when you're seeing it live. It also, I think it features two or three extra bonus tracks at the end that are not part of Dragon Quest games but feel like they could be. And I think there's even a sorrow theme that gets added that I actually don't really remember from the games at all. But it's there. It's on the soundtrack. So.
Nice.
The remake or the Super Famicom remake for Dragon Quest III saw a reissue of the soundtrack with 1 or 2 extra bonus tracks on it as well. I think the main one that I can remember is the theme for when you're filling out the personality quiz at the beginning, and then the Dragon Quest VI piano soundtrack. So that they did a piano version of Dragon Quest VI with all the different and just echoing what Yangus was saying about how great Dragon Quest VI's soundtrack and all the various themes and everything. It translates really well to piano as well. Particularly the sailing theme sounds amazing on piano, and it's really I've attempted to play it several times by ear, and it's a little complex to pick up by ear, but it has this kind of this quality to it. It's hard to describe, but we'll play it in the background, and you can sort of hear it. It does kind of ebb and flow like you're on a boat. You can kind of hear it. You can kind of feel like you're going through the waves in this song. It's pretty cool.
Just to jump in real quick, Liam, just because you brought up that piano one. I meant to mention this before with the Dragon Quest VII one, but there actually is a piano version of Dragon Quest VII soundtrack as well. And it's cool because the artwork for it just features a bunch of different Dragon Quest VII characters all sitting around a piano. I just happened to think about that while you were talking about 6's piano version. It's like, oh yeah, right, there was one for 7 too.
Yeah, I mean, some of these soundtracks I've originally downloaded back on like Audio Galaxy was a thing, and like Napster and all of that stuff. Like I just still have it. They're just crap 128 kbps versions of some of these tracks. One of them was the Dragon Quest V piano soundtrack, which is actually still really good too. Like anytime you can get a piano version, for the most part, you can get a piano version of a soundtrack, definitely go for it, because it is an interesting interpretation. I originally put for this next piece top 3 favorite tracks, and in the show notes I think Yangus you put top 5 and then put in parentheses 3 choices isn't enough. So now, yeah, I had to come up with I had to come up with 2 extras, as I've only ever thought in top 3 for this. So Yangus, why don't you go first?
Okay. Well, let's get this one out of the way, because I'm sure we'll all say it if we didn't have to limit ourselves. Let's just all agree that we all love the Dragon Quest Overture. You know, that's going to be one that's all in our hearts.
No. So annoying. No, I'm just kidding. No. I love how that has evolved over the years too, because obviously there's the first one for Dragon Quest 1, but he's added like little flourishes and little sections to it for each game.
Yeah.
It's been nice.
Yeah. I was gonna say the Tokyo Metropolitan version of the Dragon Quest 1 soundtrack, because the Dragon Quest 1 soundtrack was short, obviously, so they added they embellished that main theme, and you get extra content that didn't appear in any previous soundtracks, or from my memory anyway.
Yeah, you do. You know what? I remember, Liam, when I was going through and ordering all of the symphonic suites of the Tokyo Metropolitan ones so I could have them for my collection, I got Dragon Quest 1s in the mail, and I'm like, well, it's going to be really short. It's only 8 or 9 songs. I was really shocked when I looked at the back of that thing and it said there was 60 songs or so. I'm like, holy crap, why are there 60 songs on here? And then when I put it in my computer and started getting it onto my iTunes, then I started listening to them. It's like, oh, that's really cool. They orchestrated all of the various, or most of the various jingles from the series.
Yep, yeah. I was going to mention that too. I think they do a lot of that stuff for if people want like ringtones. They can easily turn it because some of them is just it's an oboe doing the at the end of the battle, or on trumpet. Even I think the opening join music that we put at the beginning of every Slime Time episode to introduce our guests. I'm pretty sure that came from that soundtrack as well.
Yeah. If you play Dragon Quest 11S and you have the orchestrated music on, they actually do use a number of the orchestral versions of the jingles from this particular soundtrack that we're talking about. So it's cool to hear them used in an actual game then instead of it just being the MIDI versions all the time. But anyway, so for my top 5, even though it was supposed to be 3 choices, I went with, in no particular order, Violent Enemies from Dragon Quest V, which is the battle theme, the standard battle theme. 2, I put Sky, Ocean, and Earth, which is the ending theme from Dragon Quest VIII. Saint's Wreath, which is from Dragon Quest VI, which typically plays in the more calming, relaxing areas. A lot of the undersea areas you go to, it plays in this one. And if you play Dragon Quest XI and you've gotten to the town of Nautica, this is actually the theme, or this is the song that plays when you're under the ocean in this particular town. For 4, I put Holy Shrine from Dragon Quest II, which, as the name implies, it plays in a lot of the holier sanctuary shrine areas of Dragon Quest II. Most notable one example is when you're in the Valley of Rhone and you reach that sanctuary that's right before Hargon's castle. This is a song that you hear in that particular area. And for my 5th one, I put Rab the Wizard from Dragon Quest XI, which, as the name explains, it is Rab's theme from that game. And more importantly, it's the song that you hear whenever you've booted the game back up and you get the little brief story synopsis that gives you a bit of a recap on what was the last thing you were doing. And for this last one in particular, like, I got Dragon Quest XI Symphonic Suite like shortly after it came out in Japan. Like, this is something that I pre-ordered and got it like 2 or 3 days after it came out over there. And I listened to this soundtrack a lot before Dragon Quest XI came out over here. And I always found myself returning to Rab's theme in particular because I just enjoyed how it was sort of this bouncy, but also kind of a relaxing song too. And it really fits Rab's character from Dragon Quest XI, which is also part of why he's one of my favorite characters, because he has this nice, joyful sounding, but also can it be, very calm and comforting thing. I always love hearing it whenever I start the game up too. There's been times where I've turned the game on and I get distracted by something on my phone. I hear the song in the background for 5 minutes and it was like, oh, I guess a few minutes have passed. I didn't even realize.
Yeah, and that was a nice part of the special edition. If you got the original special edition box set for Dragon Quest XI for the PS4, the symphonic soundtrack was one of the bonus editions that you got in that box.
It's the first official time that a symphonic suite for a Dragon Quest game was brought over here to the West, officially.
Yeah, because you always have to import it in the past.
I just have my Japanese version because I wasn't able to get that special version of 11, but that's a story. That's a story for another time. And the hardships of ordering from the Square Enix online store.
I remember that story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. When that was brought up with that special thing, it's just like, damn it. That's all right though. But with these songs that I chose in particular, there's a lot of other songs I could have picked, but these are songs like when I think of these 5 games in particular that I mentioned, that these are the songs that always jump in my mind first. Like with Dragon Quest 5, you have to deal with a lot of enemies, and it reminds, like the song Violent Enemies, it fits 4 battles, but it also makes me think of like all of the trials and the tribulations that the hero of 5 has to go through as he's growing up. And then with Sky, Ocean, and Earth from Dragon Quest VIII, maybe it's just because of how the ending shows you like different cutscenes and different events from the game itself, but I think that this is a good song that really caps off the adventure because it starts off with a gentle theme, then it gets a little more playful with the dun 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 do, and it shows you like it shows you more of the characters, makes you think of like some of the misadventures you've gotten with Yangus, and gets in more of the some of the escapades you had to complete. And then when you have the big triumphant sound towards the end, it really gets you in the mood for like it's gearing up for the final battle, and what that like it's leading towards the climax. And there's a lot of other great ending themes, but one that's always stuck out for me is Dragon Quest VIII. But yeah, for these other songs that I picked, like Saints Wreath, like I said earlier with the Dragon Quest VI part, this was one that whenever I think of 6, this is one of the first songs I always think of. I was so glad to hear that this song was in Dragon Quest XI, not only for the town of Nautica, but for some of the more calming, peaceful areas that you go to that have more of this, fairy tale like feeling to them, which is part of why I love the Saints Wreath song. It has this real, it fits the fantasy of a Dragon Quest game. And for Holy Shrine, it's a pretty short song, all things considered, since it is from Dragon Quest II and it's from the NES era. But I always like this song because it's kind of like the Saints Wreath or Rab the Wizard, why I picked it. It's a very calming song, but it also has, with Holy Shrine in particular, it has this real mystery to it, I think. Like, there's a holy power that's watching over you. In Dragon Quest II's case, it might be like the goddess Rubis. And I always like hearing this song in Roan, or in the shrine that's in Roan too, because this does feel like it really does invoke that feeling of this is your last place to go, but you're not alone in this whole conflict. You've been traveling all over the world collecting all of these medallions, collecting all of these sigils of the different things, getting the blessing of the goddess Rubis. So, the 3 cousins might be, the only ones physically there, but they have a bunch of people supporting them. And I feel like this song does a good job encompassing that and giving you that comforting feeling. But I can keep rambling on about these songs, so I'm going to stop there and let you guys get your say in on your songs.
That's all good. We're all passionate about this stuff, so thank you. Pendy, how about you?
Yeah, so I guess I'll go next. So for my top 5, and this is in no particular order, the first one I put would be Battle for Glory, which is the normal fight theme for 4. It's just there's a few that are really good that I've liked over the years, but I always come back to 4 as my favorite. It just is the most exciting for me overall among all the battle themes in Dragon Quest, and one of my favorite tracks for Dragon Quest overall. Next one I put is Grueling Fight from 3, and this is the final boss theme from Dragon Quest 3. And for my money, I think this kind of evokes like the best sense of like, oh god, this is going to be like this epic fight with Zoma, and he's he might kick my ass. And I think this is for me, it was the best final boss theme that I like out of all the Dragon Quest games. Next one I got is the end or final for Dragon Quest 4. It's the end theme for Dragon Quest 4, which I kind of touched on before, like how I would actually get kind of emotional every time I beat Dragon Quest 4, because as you're going through with your balloon and kind of seeing where everybody goes and stuff. But I just think the way that it kind of builds up in the beginning and how epic it is throughout, I just love the beauty of that song as you're going through all those different scenes at the end of that game. Next one I put is another endgame theme, My Road, My Journey from 2. I believe this is pretty famous among a lot of people. I've heard of people actually using this theme for their weddings and things of that nature. It's another very good ending game theme, very beautiful for the end of that game. And then the last one I put is Cursed Towers for 4. It's the tower theme. Whenever you get into a tower, you hear this music. And, in a lot of RPGs in general, like most of the time, when you're going through a dungeon, you're going to some cave or something like that, so you don't go into like a tower that often. And when you do go into a tower in like a Dragon Quest game, like I thought for this game, this theme, I thought it kind of captured the best sense of mystery and adventure when it came to a tower theme. So that's why I put that as one of my top 5 as well. So that's my top 5 for the tracks that I like.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a couple of things about some of those choices that I want to touch on a little bit later when we talk about kind of our notable mentions. But those are all awesome choices as well. So my favorite, and I had to add 2 more, but my top favorite is definitely the Unknown Castle from Dragon Quest IV. That's one of the ones where when I was originally playing the NES version as a kid, and the song came on, I was just like, wow, that is a really catchy melody. And there was something just amazing about hearing that played when you get to Zenithian Castle. It really does feel kind of like heavenly orchestral music to me. And when you play something like that, or something like Chateau, which is also on my list, Chateau from Dragon Quest II, you could play that for someone who's never played a Dragon Quest game, and they would just say like, "Oh yeah, that's classical music." You know, it doesn't necessarily it transcends being in a game and can just be a piece of classical music that you're listening to. And I think he does do that a couple of times. Like in some of his compositions, you can hear not on my list, but as an honorable mention, you can hear themes from like Bach in Dragon Quest V's Castle Trumpeter. If you go back and listen to some of Bach's like Baroque music, and then you listen to that Castle Trumpeter track, you can tell it's definitely an influence. There's certain themes from Mozart and Beethoven. Even you can hear, if you listen to a bunch of their music and then go back and listen to some of the soundtracks, you can hear that as well. Just kind of the influences. All right, but getting back to my top favorite tracks, Heavenly Flight would be my second one from Dragon Quest 3. It appears again in Dragon Quest 8. It's the Phoenix Ramia theme, and that's one of those things where it's kind of sad, but it's also really beautiful to just hear that as you're flying around. And unfortunately, you don't get Ramia for very long before you have to proceed to another part of the game where you can't get access to him. But I always thought that was a really cool theme, and I love to just kind of zoom back to a Liahan or somewhere on the main map and just fly around just to hear it sometimes. Chateau, I mentioned from Dragon Quest 2. This is one I wanted to have played at my wedding, but it was a little cost prohibitive. I originally wanted to get like a 4-piece orchestral quartet, ideally to play this and a handful of other Dragon Quest themes as we walked in. But the cocktail hour music could just be Dragon Quest music. That ended up being a little bit cost prohibitive, so we couldn't get that done. Maybe if Tomoko and I are crazy enough to get married again, we'll do that.
There you go.
Fighting Spirit, I guess adding 2 extra here. Fighting Spirit from Dragon Quest 3 is just, it kind of it takes me back to being a kid and playing Dragon Quest 3 for the first time, but also watching the Dragon Quest Able Yusha anime or Dragon Warrior anime as a kid as well. And then I've got a tie for my number 5. So Yangus was talking about the Dragon Quest 7 soundtrack, so I had to add this one in. But originally I had the Saint, the piano version from Dragon Quest 5 soundtrack. There's something I really like about that track. It's just emotional, and it really hits me in the feels. And then the thing that I had to add, based on what Yangus was talking about, the Dragon Quest 7 soundtrack was so tied with the Saint would be Pirates of the Sea. I think it's called Pirates of the Sea. Is that right, Yangus? It's a sailing theme. There's 2 sailing themes in. There's 2 sailing themes in 7 soundtrack. This is the one that starts out with the big kind of trumpet, like that in the beginning.
Sorry, my headset fell on my ear there for a sec, but yeah, it's Pirates of the Sea is the one that you're talking about, Liam.
Yeah, that's such a great theme, and just it really, again, I mentioned before the sailing theme from Dragon Quest 6, particularly on piano. This is one of those ones where it really makes you feel like you're sailing on a ship, particularly with a royal ensemble with you. It just sounds very regal. A couple of notable mentions. So I always mention this when we talk about Dragon Quest 4's music, but the battle theme, Battle for Glory, yes. On the original NES, there's an actual crescendo, which is rare for an NES game. So crescendo meaning the gradual increase from soft to loud, and in it you can hear it in an NES game. It's pretty rare to hear that level of detail put into an NES game, but they did have the ability to do that, and that's one of the rare games that featured it. Nice. Dragon Quest 6 battle theme, that is, if you listen to the piano version especially, it's just really hard to play. I've tried to emulate it by ear. It is all over the place. It's really fun to try, and I hope someday I can master that. But it's completely nuts. Sometimes you can hear Disney influences on Sugiyama's music. I talked about classical themes, but there's also a handful of Disney influences. One in particular that comes to mind is the Quester's Rest theme, aka the Tavern Polka, which reminds me of the "It's a Small World After All" theme. It's got that da 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 da, and then even one point it slows down and goes. It sounds even more like it's like da 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 da, and then it just reminded me of being on that ride in Disney. Yeah.
You know what's really funny about you saying that, Liam? There's a song that's also in Dragon Quest VIII that I think has that "It's a Small World" theme.
Yes, I was going to mention that as well. Yeah, I couldn't remember the name of the track, but there's another theme in Dragon Quest VIII that sounds like that too.
Yeah, let me pull it up here. It's the song "Quiet Village," and to be specific, it plays in towns like Alexandria, or Alexandra, excuse me, like where you meet Jessica.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm remembering what that sounds like now. Yeah, I can hear that.
Yeah.
The opening of that song sounds exactly like Small World, where it does the bum 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 bum.
Yes.
Bum,
Yeah.
bum,
Yeah.
bum. It's just a slightly altered version.
It's the version that plays at night, right?
It plays for both.
Oh,
yeah,
it's both.
It's the song. It's the night and day version. They
Okay,
both
yeah,
sound like that.
Okay.
Yeah, because at night they would just do like a kind of a slower.
Yeah, it's just a
version,
little
same
more
thing.
quiet.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely. I was thinking of that as well. I just couldn't remember the name of the track. Some Dragon Quest music actually debuted in the U.S. in Dragon Quest in the Dragon Warrior anime featuring Abel. This is before some of the games came out, including Dragon Quest III's soundtrack. So the anime debuted in, I believe, 1990, I think, in the U.S. And Dragon Quest. Only Dragon Quest II was out at that point. So I'm watching the anime as a kid, and I'm hearing all this music, and then I'd hear it and see themes in like Najimi Tower and Eliahan or Raihan. I would see that referenced in the anime first, and then the game came out later, and I would be like, "Oh, cool! This is from the anime," or like this, reference to it. So yeah, it's several things like the Dragon Quest battle theme, Fighting Spirits for Dragon Quest III. That was familiar to me before the game came out because I'd seen the anime. And even the balloon theme from Dragon Quest IV makes an appearance at one point. I think that a couple of years later I went back and watched it and realized that, and it was just like, oh my god, that's the balloon theme. So there's even stuff from 4 that made it in. I think it was rare, but I think it might have only been the balloon theme, maybe 1 or 2 other tracks, but that's the one that comes to mind. And the US got a combination of orchestral and synth versions for the anime soundtrack, whereas the Japanese version only got original songs and not much from the games at all, other than sped up versions of the main theme.
Interesting.
Dragon Quest IV's balloon theme is one of the longest NES tracks ever. I don't know the exact longest track of NES game ever, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is it. It just has so many themes, and it just keeps going throughout, and it's amazing to listen to. Especially, it's just super long for an NES game to not loop over a short track.
I mean,
It is.
4 in general.
It's one of the longest Dragon Quest songs, period, I think.
Yeah.
And it's just for its day as a later NES game, 4 is just insane on how epic it is for that period of time. Just the scope and the graphics and everything for it is insane.
Yeah, I remember when I played Dragon Quest IV for the first time, and I remember getting the balloon and flying around in it, and I'm like, this song seems like it goes on for a while. I wonder how long this one goes for. I could not believe when I first played the DS version, just like flying around the overworld on purpose, not landing anywhere, how long that song went before it looped around again.
Yeah.
It was so crazy. I could not believe that. I figured it was just going to be like Lamia/Ramia's theme from Dragon Quest III was just going to be like a shorter, like maybe about like a minute before it looped or something. No, it goes forever.
Yeah, and sometimes, like you said with the Phoenix Ramia theme, I mean, sometimes the orchestral versions are actually longer than the version we get in the game with extra little nuance added to it. But for this balloon theme, they put the whole thing in there. That's really long.
He did. I think Sugiyama just wanted to be like, you know what? I'm just gonna make this balloon. You know what? When he was doing Dragon Quest IV originally, he's like, Ramia's theme. This is a good little song, but you know what? I can make one even longer.
Yeah, it's like a hold my beer moment for Koichi. So Dragon Quest IV's ending theme is actually, Pendy, you touched on this earlier as one of your favorites. This theme, the full version of it that is featured in game, is unique and has never actually appeared on a full soundtrack. And that's what I mean by it's unique is that there are interludes as the scene changes from you kind of. I forget if you're in the balloon or if you're sailing, but as you're going to the various towns, they'll touch on sped up versions of the walking themes. So when you get to when you get to Torneco going back, or when you get to Ragnar going back to his hometown, they'll feature their walking themes with sped up, and then they'll go back to the end theme again. It's amazing. I wish that they had an orchestral version of that with featuring those little musical interludes.
That would be nice.
But it's never appeared on a soundtrack that I've heard. I've heard of a lot of different versions of 4 before. So other than the OST, I haven't heard it on any orchestral versions.
Yeah, I also think that it's really fun with all the different musical cues that we have in the Dragon Quest world, about when you get cursed, or when you level up, find a hidden staircase, teleporting. All those different little musical cues or sounds are terrific. So that's always been fun as well in Dragon Quest games.
That's funny. I think if you have a fail, I think it's like if your save file gets corrupted in some of the original NES games, I think they played that curse theme like no. So like it just adds a little bit of extra like no like if your save file gets cursed.
That's great. Yeah, I think I remember that because I was doing Dragon Quest 3 or Dragon Warrior 3, and I had a little TV up in my bedroom and a little NES, and unfortunately, like if you I was upstairs, so if you came in and you kind of like pounded on the floor a little bit, it would reset the NES. It was like that delicate. And my dad kind of would thump around sometimes, so I'd have to be worried of him walking around, because if he came up, boom, 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 and then it would just reset my NES. I'd be like, no. Like, I saved data.
Save often.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring up was the track Only Lonely Boy from Dragon Quest II, because this was the only pop song that we ever got from a Dragon Quest game. They ended up making this for Dragon Quest II, and they released it shortly before its release. Before the game was released, they released the song before the game to kind of push the game. And Sugiyama, he was the one that actually composed the song, but the lyrics were done by somebody else. I looked it up as Yoshiko Mura. I'm probably pronouncing that horribly. And then Anna Makino was the one that sang the song. So they had a little Dragon Quest pop song out in the world before 2 came out. So I thought that was always really interesting. Dragon Quest. So we actually, and that's the Only Lonely Boy. If you don't know, that's the song that pops up when you go to select your file in the beginning of a game. So it's that song that plays when you're doing that.
Yeah, and so, I didn't realize that was an actual pop song until maybe only a couple of years ago.
Me too. Yeah. Only within the last few years I learned that. I thought that was fascinating.
I think it was mentioned on Twitter or something. I was like, wait, what? This is an actual song with lyrics that was like released in Japan. And there's a moment too in Dragon Quest II. I think it's the town of Baran or somewhere where there's a woman you encounter at the entrance of the town, and if you talk to her, she sings the song. And now in retrospect, I'm wondering if that was supposed to be Anna Makino.
Oh, yeah. And I always thought, like, when you do that file select portion of game, like, I always thought back in the day, like, wow, this is really catchy. Like, holy crap. Like, now it explains, like, why something so simple for such a simple function is such a catchy tune, because it was a big, well-produced pop song at the time.
All right. So does anybody have a favorite Dragon Quest, particularly favorite Dragon Quest orchestra? Yangus, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, I'm just going to go with the Tokyo Metropolitan Symphonic Orchestra, only because that's the one that I've heard the most music from. And I personally just prefer the sound of that orchestra over the London Philharmonic versions that I've heard. It's I mean, they're both good, don't get me wrong, but it's more of just a personal taste thing, because I just like how the sounds in the Tokyo Metropolitan versions of it. Feels more full, and it feels more like everything is more evenly divided amongst the orchestras or the instruments and the families of instruments. Because with it could have just been the recording the recording machines and technology of the time, but the London Philharmonic ones just don't sound as clean to me as the Tokyo Metropolitan ones do. So that's the only reason why I prefer those ones.
Oh, that's
Both
funny.
are good, but it's probably just more of a tomato thing, but I just prefer the Philharmonic, or the Tokyo Metropolitan Symphony Orchestra. Now that I said the whole thing, there we go.
That's funny because I actually have the exact opposite take. I like the Tokyo Philharmonic or the London Philharmonic versions because there's certain points in the Tokyo Metropolitan Symphony Orchestra soundtracks where I can hear them, the musicians, like make mistakes that I don't hear in the other versions. Like they'll they were recording this live. They weren't doing multiple takes, or maybe they were, but in certain cases, I can hear just little nuances or things that sound off that don't sound that way in the London Philharmonic and Tokyo Philharmonic versions.
Only one that I really can think of where I've heard like a mistake that I noticed was in one of the ending themes of Dragon Quest XI, which I forget what that song is called. I think it's Triumph of the Heroes or Return of the Heroes. His name. It's from the Act 2 ending theme. If you listen to the orchestra version, there's a part halfway through where you hear, I think it's one of the horns in the background. It's supposed to not make like a noise, but it does.
Yeah.
And they did not change that or fix that for the definitive edition release of 11, but that's the one that I can think of where I have noticed one where it's like that. I hear it every time, and I remember on the Dragon's Den Discord that we're a part of, that Blue Star, one of the members on there, she mentioned that one time, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm glad somebody else has noticed that too. She's like, I hate it. It's like, me too.
That makes sense. She's got an ear for music as well.
Yeah.
Nice.
She did that. She did that little. What track did she do with her flute? That was really good. I think she did a track from 3. I think, but yeah.
She's done a few different ones. Like she's shown us her sheet music that she's done, but didn't she record herself playing one too? Is that what you're talking about, Pendy?
Yeah. She recorded.
Wow.
She recorded herself playing some tracks with the flute. It was really good.
Oh, that's awesome. I never heard that. I'll have to
about that. But yeah, she's done a pretty good job too, like getting a lot of the songs converted into woodwind quartets and quintet versions of them.
Yeah. That's amazing. I had no idea. We probably should have had her on as well.
Yeah, and she'll post them and be like, "Okay, someone guessed the song," and I'm not very good at guessing songs for woodwind parts because I played brass, so I played low. I played bass octave, so.
Nice. Yeah. So, that's a good point. Did any of you guys play an actual musical instrument, or do you rather?
Yeah, I do.
What did you play, or do you play?
I mainly play low brass instruments. So, like, I started out playing baritone, which is just another term for like a euphonium. I eventually went on to play the tuba / sousaphone when I got into high school, and I still played in college a lot. I haven't done as much recently, but every now and then there's different stuff that I will go and play for. Like they do in the state that I live in, one of the cities, they do what's called Tuba Christmas. So it's just a bunch of tuba players who will play different Christmas songs.
That's awesome.
Everybody has different parts.
Awesome.
Like that.
How about you, Pendy?
Oh, I can't play a thing.
I can do some piano by ear, but like I can play a lot of the, like, have you guys played like Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask from the Zelda series at all, or heard some of like the Ocarina songs from that game?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why I started doing it, but I figured out how to play a lot of those songs by ear on the piano, and like play like the full renditions that you hear in the game, not just like the little version you got to play with the buttons. I can't play the piano otherwise to save my life, but I figured out how to do those at least.
Nice. So I play piano, and I also haven't in a while, but I had growing up I played violin. More recently, I picked up the mandolin, which is actually stringed. It's basically violin strings doubled in a like a tiny little guitar form, and I've been kind of picking apart. When I was back in the when I lived in Jersey, I would just take the mandolin and go outside with my son to a park and just kind of pick apart a couple of Dragon Quest or some of the Wind Waker themes. There's the Big Band of Rogues soundtrack. which is they have a Mario and Zelda big band soundtrack that's actually really excellent. Definitely check it out. I think it's on Spotify. And they have the Dragon Roost Wind Waker theme. They have a really cool violin and mandolin version of that. I would love to kind of pick that apart and play that. So I can play that, and the main theme from Wind Waker, I can do most of it by ear. That's the other thing. See, I barely read music at all. I've played music for like 35 years of my life. I can barely read a note of it. I can pick it apart very slowly, but to this day, I'm mostly an ear player. Even when I was in orchestra growing up in high school and in middle school, even dating back to elementary school when they introduced the music to us, I would listen to what other people were playing when we had to play for a test and you're playing solo. I would listen to what everyone else did, and then I would just fix the mistakes when I played it, like the mistakes that I was hearing other people do, make sure that I don't do them, and then that's how I survived in the orchestra. And actually, I ended up in first chair at one point when I was in 8th grade, just based on ear. So it's something I stopped playing the violin after high school, but I'd like to kind of go back and pick it up a little bit at some point again when I have all access to instruments.
Yeah, violin was always an instrument that I thought would be cool to learn how to play, or at least like try and learn how to play. I don't know if I could, if I'm going to ever have the opportunity to do that now, but in the future, I'd like to give it a try just to see if I could do it.
Yeah, I mean,
I've always thought the violin has a really cool sound as well.
Definitely, and the mandolin is very close to it if you're just playing like pizzicato, or just plucking the strings on a violin. It's kind of very similar to that. So it translates really well. I when I got my mandolin, it was like $30 on eBay back like maybe like 15 to 20 years ago. And now I'm trying to get one again in Ishigaki, and it's like everything's like $100 and up. I was like, I don't want to spend that. But yeah. So getting back to the agenda, I just wanted to talk about live concerts as well. And Pendy, you have a live concert experience as well, where you saw Dragon Quest performed live, right?
Yes, I talked about it on a previous podcast, but yeah, that was an amazing experience. One of my trips to Japan, I timed it to where I could see the opening to Your Story in the movie theaters and also see a Dragon Quest concert. It's not that hard to get tickets to, or to find a Dragon Quest concert, because they do many Dragon Quest concerts throughout the year. And actually, it was Sugiyama that actually founded that concept. Like, he was the first one that went out and actually did a concert, an orchestral concert based off a video game. Like, that had never been done before, and he popularized that concept. And
wow.
It's been, it blew up for Dragon Quest in particular, and they've been doing it for decades, and they do tons of concerts throughout the year. But what I was lucky in is that I was able to time it because he only orchestrates like maybe 1 or 2 concerts a year now, especially him getting up in years. And he just happened to be doing the concert that I was going to. So he was the composer for the entire concert, and that was just amazing. So what it ended up being, it was part of the Dragon Quest Family Classic Concert Series, and they did the entire soundtrack to Dragon Quest 3. So that was amazing to hear, especially live and done by him. And at the end of it, they did like a little bonus section too, like where they did like where they left, and then they came back and did some more. The encore, they did an encore, and they did like various tracks from different Dragon Quest games as well. And they did like the full Dragon Quest 11 overture as opposed to the one from 3. So they got the whole thing. So that was very interesting. But to be in like that live concert setting and to hear that music was just amazing. And then kind of towards as the tracks would go on, like the audience just got more and more into it. Obviously they'd be quiet during the selections, but in between selections you'd hear this big roar from the audience of just audible yells of, "Oh my God, that was so great!" It was interesting. And I'd never been to a concert before where you had a bunch of people like bringing up their 3DS with them, playing that before the concert was on and stuff like that. People had other gaming systems and stuff they brought with them, and that was great. It was a great experience, and also to go see Your Story in theaters was great as well. because the music in that was, as far as the research I could tell, Sugiyama was the one that arranged that for the movie, and the tracks that they used, mostly from 5, were amazing. And I thought, to hear that in the theater, it was great. I remember like when the movie ended and they're just, I'm just sitting there listening to the Dragon Quest music over the credits, and I was like, oh, this is great. It's just, that was pretty cool. What did you guys think of how the soundtrack was arranged for your story?
Yangus, you want to go?
You keep having me go first.
No, I just from my memory, it was the Dragon Quest V sound.
No, that's fine. I'm just joshing you.
Orchestrally, so
I'm just joshing you. No, Dragon Quest, Your Story, I thought it had a good mix of songs. You obviously had a lot from Dragon Quest V. You had a few from Dragon Quest III, like the endings, or the song that played during the credits was Into the Legend, which is the ending theme of Dragon Quest III. There was, I believe they had the prologue theme from Dragon Quest III as well. The one you were talking about earlier, Liam, where you have to do the personality quiz. Mm-hmm. There were a few other. I can't remember all the songs, unfortunately. I had a note for them somewhere it's either on my phone or my normal iPod. I can't remember, but anyway, I do remember there were some other songs, and I thought a lot of the music that they picked did fit in with a lot of the scenes. I did find a little odd, though, in the movie that there was a lot of times where they just would use the Dragon Quest Overture for different, events going on. It always seemed like they would just go back to that one. The one I remember in particular was when the son showed up, to save Abel, or what was his name in the movie? Was it Abel? Was that the dad's name?
I can't remember.
Well, anyway, when the son came to save the dad, after he had been turned to stone, and they just played the overture. And then I remember they're playing the overture a few other times too at different points, like when he tried to originally use the Zenithian sword, but he couldn't lift it up. And I don't know, that was one thing I just was like, I think you could have used some other songs in those places, but it was still funny.
That was one of my favorite parts, where it starts, you get the big flourish, and then it's and then it kind of dies.
Just like peters out, like, that was funny. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, oh man, it would be funny if they would have used like one of the big celebration jingle themes, where it's like he's picking up like dun 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 dun, then he can't pick it up, it's like dun dun dun.
Yeah, right. I remember that too from that kind of that like a record slowing down. I remember them doing that in Dragon Quest anime too, when they first introduced Moko, or the character Moko in his full armor set with the skull helmet, and he just comes out and he just looks completely silly, and they did that or something like something to that effect. It's just kind of a humorous little
only thing about Your Story soundtrack that I wish that they would have done is, I'm really surprised they only used the Bridal Waltz theme at one point when they got married. I kind of wish that they would have mixed that in with the credits song, or mix it into the credits or the ending, because when I think of that song from Dragon Quest V Bridal Waltz, obviously you think of the wedding ceremony and everything, but it also makes me think of the credits and how you get sort of a recap of the adventure, and you get to see one last shot of the hero's now back in Gotham with his family, and he's going to be able to live that happily ever after. And it was a good way to end off that game, both thematically and musically. So I kind of wish with Your Story that they would have done the same thing, or if they wanted to start with part of Into the Legend, but then halfway through it switches over and changes into Bridal Waltz, I would have liked that a little bit more. It's still Into the Legend, it's still a great song to end a movie on, or to end a Dragon Quest game on, but just because it being Dragon Quest V, I do wish that they would have worked in Bridal Waltz for the ending theme, at least at some point.
You got to do the Yangus cut of the movie. I'm working on the Liamland cut that cuts out all the bullshit at the end.
Well, see, the Yangus cut is just going to be a crudely drawn version of Nimzo showing up and being like, "I am Nimzo, I am here."
Yeah, right.
I won't say what it's going to be going over specifically, but I'll just say that once Lodja leaves, that Nimzo is going to show up and he'll be like, "I am Nimzo. I am bad guy.
Right,
I kill you now. Blood of hero spilled. Blah blah blah." And just we'll get.
I'll take that over the.
Well, you guys have heard those poorly played recorder versions of different songs on YouTube, right? Where they'll take a really pretty song and they'll play it on a recorder, but it sounds really awful.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do one of those memes with Nimzo's boss theme. We'll just be like, It just sounds like total butt. That'll
Nice.
be great.
So just getting back to the live experience, I did get to see Koichi Sugiyama conduct as well. A couple of years ago, my wife and I were in Japan, and we got tickets to see Trio de Quest, and it was a tour of a trumpet, a trombone, and a pianist. And they were going around just like various cities playing the soundtracks for 1 through, I believe it was 1 through 6, and it was pretty amazing. Koichi Sugiyama actually appeared at the concert we were at, and he was sitting in the seats with us, only like 10 feet from where we were. For where my wife and I were sitting, and
Nice.
we knew he was going to be there because it said it like on the flyer and everything. So we brought a box of cookies to give him after the show, and so we were hanging out backstage. Like at the end, we were hanging not backstage, like out by the entrance to the backstage area after the concert, just trying to see if he would come out, and he left. Like he peaced out. He was just like he left early. He had to go back to Tokyo. We were in Shizuoka at the time, and so he left out the back entrance and wasn't seeing fans or anything. But we just took the cookies home and ate them. But but it was pretty amazing. So part 2 of the concert was the trio was joined by a local orchestra. Sugiyama did get up and conduct a few tracks personally. The one that comes to mind is the casino theme, where he actually came out and played the blocks for the bridge part of the casino theme, and which is actually kind of humorous because he walks out, and when it's like da na 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 da na 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 da na na, and he's there playing that block part, and then after it goes back down, he does this like awkward shifted dance, like, and then he just like dances and turns around and walks off stage to the theme. That was pretty hilarious. I actually got some video footage of that I'd like to maybe splice into the YouTube version of this. But it's funny. It's pretty hilarious just to see it. But then he did get up and conduct the full orchestra for part 2, a couple of tracks as well, and I think it was a local orchestra because I think most of the performers seemed a little bit younger, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention mine was when I went. It was the Tokyo Metropolitan Symphony Orchestra that I got to see, so that was cool.
Oh, cool. So let's talk a little bit about some unique interpretations of Sugiyama's music. Pendy, I think you mentioned the ukulele album.
Yeah, this one's interesting, and one of the reasons why I even know this exists in the first place is because when I went to that concert, that's one of the things they were advertising because it was about to come out at the time. So they did this. I got this little. In fact, I still have this little flyer that has a flyer for the ukulele album and also for the vinyl, the vinyl edition of Dragon Quest XI. So I still have that from the concert along with the playbook. So yeah, so ukulele, it's 42 tracks of ukulele music from various Dragon Quest games. They said it spans from Dragon Quest 1 to 11, and some of it's like full out songs. Like there's songs like Only Lonely Boy is actually on there, and a bunch of fight themes, tower themes, battle themes, etc. But there's even like they do like the level up music cue, the curse cue. They do that ukulele style. So it's very entertaining. I'm hoping we can get some in the background during the podcast. I'll send them to you. But awesome. It's very interesting interpretation, but it's fun. It's better than I thought it was going to be when I started to listen to it for a little bit.
Awesome. So there's also a rare soundtrack called the Dragon Quest Zipangu World, which is like the music from Japan, but it's a concept album where the music was performed with traditional Japanese instruments such as the koto, the sho, and the taiko. The koto is a stringed instrument, if I remember correctly. The sho is a wind instrument, and the taiko is a drum, the traditional Japanese big drum. and it's just interesting. I only have a couple of tracks from this album. It's an interesting soundtrack just to hear it performed with the original Japanese instruments. And we also have the Pendy. Did you mention the Dragon Quest Dance Best Remix or Best Dance Mix?
Oh yeah, the Dragon Quest Dance Best Dance Mix. So this mixes extremely, and I'm not kidding here, it mixes extremely generic techno beats with classic Dragon Quest music. Personally, I love it. To me, it's one of those "it's so horrible, it's great" type of things. It's definitely a Dragon Quest guilty pleasure when it comes to anything Dragon Quest. But it's I'll have some of the we'll hopefully have some of the tracks here in the background. But if not, you can look it up. There's a place you can see Apple Music. You can preview all the tracks that are on there. But yeah, it's just horribly generic techno music kind of mashed in with Dragon Quest. It's not done very well.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's a lot of fun for me. I thought it was interesting.
All right, cool. And there actually there's a soundtrack for Dragon Quest 11 on Spotify actually right now. I don't know if it's official. It says it's the piano soundtrack by Daigoro 789. So if you do a search for Dragon Quest on Spotify, not too many tracks come up because Koichi Sugiyama didn't release soundtracks to Spotify, I don't think, but you might get a couple of playlists from various folks or just some custom fan music. But I will say that the Daigoro soundtrack for Dragon Quest 11 on piano is actually really, really quality. It's very professional sounding quality. So if this is a fan album, and I'm not even entirely sure if it is, or if it's an actual official release or not, it's a really professional sounding piano collection, and I highly recommend it. Okay, Platty, are you still with us? I don't know if sometimes you go on mute. You were muting us today because that's what you do with the music in the games anyway. So if you're still with us,
that's what I'm pretty much doing right now. Playing Dragon Quest on
all
mute.
right, awesome.
No, he was talking the whole time. What are you talking about? He joined us and we were talking about the Lily album and everything. You didn't hear him?
Yeah, no, because he was on mute, so he muted his microphone.
I muted myself.
He was there the whole time.
He's been talking the whole time. He's just been on mute.
There's a little callback if you listen to the side quest April Fool's joke.
Nice. So Platty, you wanted to talk about theater rhythm?
Yeah, we won't go too far into it, but I know Yangus, you've played 50 some hours of it, and
I did.
Yep. And in my modding phase of last week, when I decided I really wanted to play the fan release of Dragon Quest Monsters 2, I went through the process of modding my 3DS, and now I can do some of those Japanese titles. Could have played them on Citra, but this felt like a game that you wanted to be tapping along on a real console with. Yeah. So, I mean, I've enjoyed it, but I've done maybe 10 little missions. I've just kind of seen like the whole grid of Dragon Quest 1 through 10 and tons of songs in there. What do I have to look forward to, Yangus?
Okay, so I had imported this one around the same time I imported the 3DS version of Dragon Quest 11 because at that point, we were still kind of unsure if we were going to be getting 11 or not, or how soon it was going to come over here. So I imported both of them, gone about the same time. And with Dragon Quest Theater Rhythm, when you start the game off, you get to choose between a number of characters, and you get to select 4 party members. Once you do, those 4 party members will be like your main 4, and then you can eventually unlock other characters by collecting the different colored spheres and orbs from the Dragon Quest games. So if you're familiar with Dragon Quest 3, that's a familiar concept. Collect the 6 orbs.
I was wondering where they got... Yeah, I was just like, hey, look, I got a round color at the end of a song. Okay.
Yep.
Well, that already
that's
explains
what
something.
Those are. Yeah, awesome. If you collect one of each color, then you'll be able to choose another character to add to your party. And there's actually quite a lot of characters you can unlock. You have... I can't remember the full list, but pretty much you run a good gambit of popular characters from Dragon Quest 1 through 10. In 9's case, you only really have the protagonist, and I think, if I remember right, you get either Aaron from the inn or Patty as one of the characters, like who runs the Patty's place. like 10's characters are just the different races, because I don't remember if at the time if 10 was still pretty new or not when that game came out, but there's like of all the games that are represented in Theatrhythm, 10 does not have the best representation music-wise, and that was one of the things that I really wasn't a big fan of. It only has like 4 tracks from that game, and there's a lot more than just 4 tracks, so it's really weird that there's not any other ones, especially for the different character races that are in Dragon Quest X. Anyway, so with Theatrhythm, you have a story, which I have no idea what the story is, where you're supposed to, collect 10,000 of the rhythm points. You get like a certain amount from beating songs on different difficulties and getting, completing different tasks and things like that. You complete that goal, you beat the boss that shows up at the end, which is just like a different collection of Dragon Quest final bosses, just depending on who it is. And then you get your credits, and pretty much you're just free to play however you want. You have stuff like TNT boards that you can go into, or Pachisi boards. And if Brewery ends up listening to this, he's going to laugh because I still don't have an answer for it. You can actually unlock the golden card ticket that lets you permanently play Pachisi / TNT whenever you want to. But I have no idea how I unlocked it, so I can't tell him how to get it. Because
Nice.
It was just one of those things where it's like, oh, I guess I can play whenever I want to now. I don't have to use the regular tickets. I have no idea how I got it. I just kind of got it. But let's see. You do have a good selection of songs from Dragon Quest 1 through 10, like I said. There are a few DLC songs you can get, which are all totally free, and I believe even now they're still totally free to get. You get some NES versions of songs from Dragon Quest 1 through 4. You get some other songs from like Dragon Quest 8, for example, and Dragon Quest 6. You do have, if you've ever played the other Theatrhythm games, there's some videos that you get to watch as you play certain songs. They're called the event songs, I believe. And you get to enjoy the ending themes from the different Dragon Quest games while watching footage of the original, Japanese console releases. So like, you do one of the songs from Dragon Quest 1 through 4, you get to watch different cutscenes and events from that game. You play Dragon Quest 8, for example, it plays a condensed version of Sky, Ocean, and Earth as you watch different in-game cutscenes from the original PS2 Japanese release. And for Dragon Quest X's case, since that's an online MMO, it doesn't really have a true ending to it. They instead used a different CGI trailer footage and played and have the they have the overture for Dragon Quest be the song for that game. So it's funny, like one of the last songs you end up getting is the overture instead of it being one of the first songs you play.
Interesting.
But if you played the other Theatrhythm games, particularly the Curtain Call version of the Final Fantasy one that's on the 3DS, this is going to be a lot like that one. Like Platty said, I put 50 hours into this particular game. I cannot read a lick of Japanese or understand any Japanese. I was able to navigate through menus totally fine, get through into different modes and gameplay. And, if you played one of those other rhythm games, you're going to be able to get into this pretty easy.
Awesome.
There is All Trades Abbey that you get to go to and change job classes.
Nice.
I don't really know what all the job classes are in the game, but from my understanding and like using Google Translate, it does seem like, you have your regular classes that show up, like warrior, mage, cleric, all that stuff. And it'll affect what sort of abilities and spells your characters can use in when you're playing songs, when you're going through battles, or like the overworld themes and things like that. Yeah. So there is a little bit of strategy, but, if you're just looking to play a Dragon Quest rhythm game with different songs from the main series, then, this is a good one to pick up. And it's really easy to play as well. You don't need to understand Japanese to play it. And I think I told Platty this one, if you go into free play, even though if you might not be able to read the text, you can still click on a song and you get like a quick little preview of what that song is going to be. So as soon as you hear it, you'll be like, oh, that's Toward the Horizon from Dragon Quest V, or oh, this is what the Dragon Quest VI town thing, stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this, because I played the Final Fantasy version of this that came over here, and I imported the Dragon Quest version, but I haven't played it yet because I haven't modded my 3DS or gotten a Japanese 3DS. So, but yeah, I would think based off of my experience with Final Fantasy that even if you don't know Japanese, it's pretty easy to navigate all the different functions in that game.
Yeah. I will say, too, that if you get this game and you do want to play it, whether you play it on the actual 3DS hardware or if you play it through Citrix, which I don't really know a whole lot about, I'll admit, but you can play this game without having to use the touchscreen. You can use it with the buttons and with the that slide pad that's on the 3DS. I forget the circle pad. That's what it's called. You can use that for like on the notes where you hold it. You move up and down along the scale. You have the regular red notes. You just have to tap the button on the 3DS screen. And for like the notes that are like the up, down, left, or right arrows, you just have to push the circle pad in that direction. I use the regular controls for it and not the touchscreen, only because if I use the touchscreen ones after a while, my hand kind of cramps up from holding the stylus. So, and luckily, like with the Theatrhythm curtain call for Final Fantasy, where they implemented that in and made it so you could play with that option. I would say that the Dragon Quest version, or this Theatrhythm Dragon Quest game, like it has the best conversion of that playstyle. Because I noticed when playing the curtain call Final Fantasy 1, there were a few times where it would say my note was, oh, good, even though I knew I, would tap the button in the correct direction or whatever. Whereas I didn't really have that problem with the Dragon Quest 1 here, and I was able to get like the max score on a lot of the easy and normal rank songs. So control-wise, it's very good. And I imagine with the touchscreen control too, since it's technically the third Theatrhythm game, that it's going to be, really, really improved compared to like the first Theatrhythm game that they released on the 3DS.
All right.
I mean, as you can tell from all the talking I've done today, I'm not. The music's fine. The music's good. It's not a reason I keep coming back to Dragon Quest. But I've found the game, Theatrhythm, to be pretty good. So yeah, even though that. And I've listened to the music, so no, pretty much everybody's got more interest in the music than me, and I'm still enjoying that little game.
Cool. Yeah, I hope to pick that one up as well.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. I think I got my copy when I imported it for like only $30. So I mean, it wasn't too expensive, and I'd imagine if you get it in Japan itself, that it wouldn't be super pricey. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I'll look for it on Mercari and see.
I will say one last thing I do want to say about the game, just because it made me laugh so hard. So, like I said, I use Google Translate every now and then for just for a quick check on something. If it was like, oh, I wonder what this says, or whatever. I learned that Google Translate is not the best option for that because it will give you weird translation things.
Oh, don't I know that?
My favorite example of that happening, and I still laugh to this day about it, I was fighting different monsters, and I was curious, like, oh, what's the thing going to say, like, the Japanese, or, what would be the name in the Japanese version, So I just used the thing to try and translate it. I kid you not, when I used the Google Translate app on a Canna box to see what its Japanese title was, Google Translate translated its name to higher education. It was the funniest thing. I love that so much. It
made me treasure laugh. You're gonna learn today, kid.
It'd be so great. They now just need to have a Dragon Quest game where there's a Canna box that's like a teacher or something, and be like, "I'm gonna teach you something here. You don't call me Mr. Higher Education for nothing."
All right, just moving right along. So as of this recording, Koichi Sugiyama has actually turned 90 today. So who do you guys think could, we should play some sort of birthday theme. Actually, the Ramones birthday theme from The Simpsons comes to mind. If we can dump that in later. But
it's killed.
Yeah. I love that part at the end where he's like, "Go to hell, you old bastard." So, who do you think could take over for Koichi Sugiyama after he's done composing for Dragon Quest games in honor of his birthday? Who do you think could take over?
So I was thinking that there's two people that I know of that would be pretty good fits. The first one that I thought of would be Manami Matsume. She did the soundtrack for Dragon Quest Swords. It's a fantastic soundtrack in my opinion, and I would bet most people don't even realize that she did the soundtrack instead of Sugiyama. She's also famous for doing the original Mega Man soundtrack and Dynasty Warrior soundtrack, and she's also contributed to tracks to games such as Final Fight and Shovel Knight more recently. She's also been the composer for a long-running series in Japan called Derby Stallion, if you're familiar with that. I guess it's like a sim game where you're running like a horse derby, running horses and stuff like that. But that's been going on for decades, and she's always been the composer for that one as well. The other one that I think would be a good fit would be Hayato Matsu. When he was coming out of college, he got introduced to and hired by Sugiyama, and he was one of the people that arranged the tracks for the first Dai anime back in the 80s. He also arranged the soundtrack did the arrangements for the soundtrack for Dragon Quest 4 through 6 on the DS, and even the mystery dungeon title Young Yangus. He's also orchestrated for the Shenmue games, He's been a prolific anime composer for titles such as Magic Knight Rayearth, Hellsing Ultimate, and did some of the tracks for High Score Girl, which, by the way, just as an aside, is a terrific period piece that involves Japanese arcades of the late 80s. But I think one of those two would be good replacements.
Awesome. How about you, Yangus?
For me, I would have to go with Yuzo Koshiro. Let me get to the notes here so I can read my full thing I wrote down. Here we go. So I went with him because Yuzo Koshiro has been writing video game music since the late 80s, and he's worked on some various RPG series like Ys, ActRaiser, and his most recent one is Etrian Odyssey. Fun fact, I actually just learned about this one a little while ago. He actually took inspiration from Dragon Quest V and its music when he first started working on the Etrian Odyssey series, and that influence shows in how he composed his work. If you listen to his symphonic orchestra adaptations of his different soundtracks, particularly if you go back and listen to the ActRaiser Symphony Orchestra via YouTube, or listen to some of his Etrian Odyssey stuff from the 3DS games, you'll see that, in my personal opinion, that he would be a good fit for it. He curates really enjoyable and catchy town themes that get you ready for the adventure. There's a lot of good atmospheric and inspiring dungeon themes that help present the mood of what the game kind of wants to get you into the mindset of. And he has a lot of really fun battle themes that have a mix of your regular orchestra sound with different instruments like trumpets, strings, woodwinds, and stuff. But then he also has a little bit of a rock influence thrown in on a few songs, mainly with like the boss themes of certain, or when you fight the foes, which are basically like mini bosses in that series. And really, like outside of the Etrian, me being a fan of his work in the Etrian series, I just think that Yuzo Koshiro is one of those composers that can really fit into any sort of style that he wants to try and get into. Like he's done stuff for like Streets of Rage back on the the Sega Genesis era. And it has a real like techno beat, sort of pop sound almost to it. But then you have his other works where he's really able to bring out more of like a metal sound. ActRaiser, again, use that as an example from that same time period. Total opposite of a techno sound, where even on the Super Nintendo original release and the arcade version, it has a real orchestral feel to it, both thanks to the Super Nintendo sound chip and just how the music's composed overall. And what's the other one I'm thinking of? If you ever listen to Kid Icarus Uprising soundtrack, Yuzo Koshiro helped write a few of the songs from that game. Best example to listen to from that one is the Reset Bomb Factory theme. I think it's chapter 12 or 13 of that game, if I remember right. It's where you're going into the sky and trying to go after the reset bombs that are falling onto the Earth from that point of the game. But anyway, the song that plays during the opening portion of that chapter has you going after one of the bombs, and it starts off with this really cool orchestra piece where it goes dun 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 and it just keeps building up and building up. And when you finally get to the point where you got to fight off the bomb and destroy it before it crashes into the Earth, you have this nice change of pace with how the music presents itself. But yeah, I could go on a lot about Koshiro's music, especially for his Etrian stuff and like ActRaiser stuff. But I think just personally, I think he would be a really cool fit for the series because, again, he's able to adapt to different styles so well. And for his orchestral stuff in particular, that has sort of that classical influential feel like Dragon Quest stuff does, he's able to, replicate some of those styles from like Bach or Beethoven or things like that. And like listening to some of his, again, ActRaiser stuff, you can hear sort of that inspiration in a few of his pieces, especially, I can't remember the name of the song, unfortunately, but that's part of why I pick him as well. And because, him saying that he was inspired by Dragon Quest for his work in the Etrian series makes me think that, if he could take what he's learned from that series, he could really translate it that well into Dragon Quest proper then. And I'd really be curious to hear, what he could do if he actually was at the helm of a Dragon Quest game proper.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd have to echo what Pendy said about Minami Matsume, based on the Dragon Quest Sword soundtrack, and some of her catchy work from Mega Man and Shovel Knight. I really like her work and would love to see her do more for Dragon Quest and see what kind of other original compositions she can come up with, because I think the music from Swords, if you didn't realize it wasn't Koichi Sugiyama, like I think it's pretty amazing how she was able to kind of blend in her style with his.
Definitely.
All right. Does anybody else have anything? I know my kids are going to bust in on us soon, so we probably have to wrap this up. But does anybody else have anything else they want to say about the music? All right. So that's it for this episode of Slime Time. We do want to thank Yangus and Pendy for joining us today.
No
Thanks,
problem.
guys.
It was great to be here
it's
again.
it's good to talk about all things music related for this series because as you can tell, we all have our lots to say about the music, especially Platty. He said the most out of all of us.
Yeah. So we don't use Patreon, but if you have money you'd like to donate, consider sliding on over to Dragon's Den and clicking on support this site. Woodus has owned and maintained Dragon's Den for over 20 years and appreciate any donation. You can also use his Amazon affiliate links to make any purchases, and a small fraction of the sale will go to support the den. You can advertise on with us by reaching out at slimetimepodcast@gmail.com. If you have any comments or questions, you can find me on Twitter at YangusTheLegendaryBandit, Platty's at Plattym3, at DQ Slime Time to hit both of us up. Consider joining in tons of DQ discussions at the Dragon's Den forums, one of the remaining DQ forums still around. You can find it at www.woodus.com/forums. We'd like to thank everyone who made this possible, such as Woodus, for his support of the series and this podcast. He does an amazing job editing the YouTube versions, and he's owned and operated Dragon's Den for decades. If you're looking for more Dragon Quest Slime Time, check out our earlier episodes on Dragon's Den, Anchor.fm, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Thanks to Amanda Lepre and the Descendants of Erdrick for allowing us to use their music for our podcast. Descendants of Erdrick is a video game tribute band from Austin, Texas. Check them out in their most recent album, Advent, at www.descendersoferdrick.com or on Twitter at @DofErdrick, and check out Amanda Lepre streaming on Twitch. Bye, everybody. Dragon Quest Slime Time, sliming off. See you next slime.